Uh, like I think to myself, I wish I could produce that. I wish I could produce willingness. I wish I could, if I had the power to do that, I would have saved myself a hell of a lot of pain and struggle and suffering a long time ago if I had the power to produce willingness. For me, I have to go through a certain amount of pain and a certain amount of struggle in order for me to become willing. And even then, I'll run around the streets naked to do whatever I need to do. But slowly but surely, Harry Tiber writes extensively about it, the regrowth of the ego, where it's also stipulated on page 35 that, the biggest problem for us alcoholics is knowledge. And I thought I knew how to do this stuff. I sat in enough meetings to be able to talk the lingo. I sat in enough step study meetings to be able to read the steps off the wall. You know, I got to listen to enough speakers to vomit out all the stuff that they were vomiting out with no experience attached to it. There was nothing tangible that I could actually speak about my experience. It was all stuff that I had learned or heard through a podcast or a book study or some sort of speaker at a meeting, that I vomited out in meetings, trying to sound good, trying to look good, trying to be exactly what I wanted to be before, galvanize and solidify my place in society because I never felt like I fitted in, that I was never a part of. I never had the right car, the right money, the right clothes, the right the right girlfriend, the right anything. So I found a space where I could use my intellect and lead you to believe and lie and manipulate you into believing that I knew what I was doing. And it took 5 years. First round of steps, I was willing to do it because I mean there was nothing left for me. I mean, I come from my drugs and alcohol use took me to a 6 meter shipping container that I used to stay in. I used to eat out of trash cans. I had a blue trench coat and two rats and a candle. That's where my drugs and alcohol took me. So I was extremely willing. My first step was extremely powerful. I remember my father-in-law when they found me on the garage floor. I remember the next morning waking up and I was extremely angry that I was still alive, that I still got to go through all this pain and the struggle and suffering because there's nothing I could do to stop drinking and drugging. So I was extremely willing to do anything and everything at that moment in time. And I remember him telling me, Ty, why don't you try this? You got nothing left to lose. And I remember in my head going, you know what? He's actually right. I've got nothing. I've got nothing left to lose. Everything else is gone. So I tried it. And I was introduced to a 12-step program in a treatment facility. And I quickly became part of a fellowship and so on and so forth. And slowly but surely, I was doing everything they were telling me to do. I mean, I was doing the 1990. I mean, I did 180 odd meetings in 90 days. I mean, I was terrified to go out again. I knew that if I was let out the gates and there was any sign of money or a cell phone or whatever the case, I'm guaranteed I'm going to use again. So I was terrified to leave. I didn't want to. Didn't want to go out into the thing we call this world because I knew that me left to my own devices, I'm pretty much screwed. So I was scared, man. My wife, she thought it'd be a good idea for us to do my first month of recovery in Cape Town, South Africa. Now, I live in Gauteng, South Africa, and Cape Town's 1,600 kilometers away from Gauteng. She thought it'd be a good idea taking me from Joburg to Cape Town because she'd get me away from the drugs. Little did she know, Cape Town is a haven for all the drugs that I needed. But I walked to meetings. I did what I was told. I did all the meetings that I was told. I had a sponsor. I was allocated a sponsor before I left treatment. They saw me coming, you know. So had allocated a sponsor. I did everything he said I needed to do my meetings, become of service. At that stage, I didn't know what service meant or what it looked like. So I thought being the coffee guy or being the literature dude or being the chair of a meeting was being of service. Yeah, to a small degree. Today, I understand what the circle and the triangle means. And that was taught to me by my sponsor. So I understand today what service means in the circle and the triangle and the three legacies. Back then, I thought it was, being the literature or the coffee dude, buy biscuits, sort of stuff. So I did all of that stuff. And like I said before, I learned all the lingo. I did what at that stage my sponsor thought was the right thing for me to do. I can't blame him for telling me to become of service and do all this stuff. But there's something that I wasn't doing after I did the first round of steps. I wasn't doing any 10 and 11. There was no 10 and 11 involved at all. I wasn't regularly taking inventories. I wasn't holding myself accountable. There was an extreme amount of dishonesty. And slowly but surely, I started to dip. It took 5 years for that to happen, though. But I started to dip again. And I got to a place where the alcoholism was so on top of me, and I didn't know which way to turn and what to do. And fortunately enough for me, all that pain and that struggle that alcoholism set me back into, I hit another bottom in recovery again. And again, I became willing to do whatever it took because the road got just a little bit more narrow than what it was when I came in the first time, 5 years before that. And fortunately for me, I was doing a book study and I was listening to these two sick dudes, Mark Houston and Dave Fredrickson. And Dave Fredrickson left his email address on one of the podcasts. Initially, I wanted to get hold of Mark, but I didn't know that he had died in 2010. Then I tried Chris Raymer, and I didn't get hold of Chris. And I emailed Dave, and Dave replied. Fortunately for me, thank God he replied. Oh, my goodness. And the first thing he gave me was a thing we call the 12 and 12. It's the 12 daily prayers, meditations, and visions that the big book gives us that we need to be doing every single day. And unbeknownst to me, he was testing me. He told me, do the first prayer for a week. When you've done that one, you do the second prayer and the first prayer for the second week, and so on and so on and so on until you've done all 12. Then phone, then phone me. That's exactly what I did. Because he knew what I needed before I knew. He knew I needed power. He knew I needed to find a connection with God as I understand God. I didn't at that stage. I thought following the I hate to say that the lip flapping party line bullshit that we hear from treatment and from certain meetings and certain whatever the case, just go to meetings, keep a plug in the jug, all that funky shit. If I could have kept the plug in the jug, I would have done it a long time ago. But I can't keep the plug in the jug. I take the plug out. So he knew exactly what I needed. I didn't know what I needed then. And he said, phone me when you're done with this. I'll phone him when I was done with it. Then we started to go through the work out of the big book, page by page, followed every instruction, turned every statement into a question. And I was ready, man. I was ripe as right. And this is all, today I get to see it. Today I get to see how God moved me from that place of despair, that proper dry drunk, but proper dry drunk. I was working in a treatment facility. And in my mind, the delusion my ego was telling me is that this is me being of service. This is me helping other alcoholics. Nah, dude, it didn't work for me. I started to destroy stuff. I started to destroy people's lives. My life at home was absolutely upside down. I'd just gotten, I had gotten how do I say this? I had been given a baby boy 2 years into my recovery, and 5 years into it, I'm not wanting to be at home, not wanting to be a father, not wanting to be a husband, pro just focused on this treatment facility and how I can get in and do stuff better. And I got sick. Got sick all over again. The alcoholism was on me like white on rice. Anyway, so I got hold of Dave. He gave me the 12 and 12. I phoned him when we were done. We started going through the work. I mean, I didn't know anything about step one. I had no fucking clue. I mean, I read the step one off the wall where powerless of alcohol, lives will become unmanageable. I didn't know that there were two parts to step one. I didn't understand. I couldn't see it until it was explained to me. I didn't know there's two parts to step two. I thought, came to believe. Simple question. My first sponsor said, we came to believe in a power greater than yourself. Do you believe in a power greater? Tick that box. Yes. Not understanding what it meant. Get to step three. Hand my will and my life over to the power of God. I didn't understand what that meant. I thought it's me sitting in a chair going, God, please take my will and my life. Have it. Go mad. You hear this stuff. Like, don't do anything serious in the first year of your recovery, or don't do anything dangerous in the first year of your recovery. I mean, if I have to really sit back and think about step three, that's the biggest decision I've ever made in my life, is step three. Now they're telling me I mustn't make any big decisions. Don't get involved in relationships. That funky shit. Yeah, I got to make a decision. And it was explained to me what that decision looks like and how we make that decision and the action that follows that decision through 4 through 9. It's not sitting on my ass going, oh God, please take my will and my life. No, I didn't understand any of that until it was explained to me what the action of what the third step really means. 4 through 9. My sponsor goes like this. Do you know what the third step really means? And I said, yeah, now I've got to hand my will and my life over. He says, how do you do that? And I said, well, I hand my will and my life over. Get on my hands and knees and I pray. And he said, no, 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 buddy. No, no. He said to me, can you count? I said, yeah. He says, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's how you hand your will and your life over to God, my friend. And I didn't understand that until I did it. Oh, it was cool, eh? Oh, dig that out. Anyway, so we did that. Did inventories, did whatever it took, man. And only through doing the inventories and getting all the stuff and getting to the amends process did I really start to see all the old ideas and all the old belief systems and all the old sort of behaviors and sort of attitudes. And I started to receive what the promises, what the book says. I mean, that book is so full of promises. Before we've even started doing the work, the first page, title page, this is the story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered. Fuck, there's another lip flapping point. Recovered, not recovering, recovered. And I didn't realize that until he showed me, you know. My sponsor is so cool. Every single one of the promises weren't used as carrots. They weren't dangled in front of me and said, oh, this is what you'll get. The promises were used as a yardstick. If I've done all the work and those promises are coming true, that means we've done everything we've needed to do. If those promises haven't come true, there's something we've missed. We need to go back and we need to do that work again. That's how the promises were used with me, and that's how they're still used with me today. See, the road for me has become extremely narrow. I mean, I'm going through work at the moment now, through a hell of a lot of pain and struggle and suffering. And my sponsor and everybody else in the steel meeting is calling me out on my bullshit. They kept on telling me, Tyrone, there's something wrong here. Tyrone, there's something wrong here. I could never see it. This ego, this alcoholism, this fear-dominated thing that's in me. kept me blinded from that for a very, very, very long time until certain things were revealed. There were certain exercises that I had to do in order for me to be able to see that stuff. There's no way I can sit on my arse here and tell you, listen, yeah, I can go back and I can see and use my mind to do it because there's something that happens between, yeah, through the arm, out the pen onto a piece of paper that cannot be explained. I can't, it's something spiritual in nature that happens from pen to paper that my mind just can't wrap its head around. It's just impossible for me to try figure it out in my mind. I must put it down on black and white. And that showed me certain things that they kept on pointing at. And I got to see old belief systems and old sort of attitudes and old way of being, old ideas. Hey, my sponsor said to me, the truth will set you free. But what he didn't tell me was it's going to piss me right the fuck off first before it gets there. He didn't tell me that. Anyway, so we got there. We're busy with this stuff. And the recovery part of it is just such a beautiful event. I mean, it's not an easy path. Uh, it's digging deep and getting down and dirty. And, my sponsor says jewels in the mud, the diamond in the dung. And I got to sift through all that shit to get to the diamond, which is, I found today a very beautiful experience. It's very difficult. I've learned how to, I've, I'm, I won't say I've learned. I'm learning how to live with fear and not live in fear, if that makes any sense. My second step proposition, my second step prayer, 68:3 says, God, please remove this fear from me and direct my attention on what you'd have me be. And my belief system, my egoic alcoholic mind says I'm always asking God to remove the fear, like to take it away from me. And that's not the truth. I got to walk through this fear with God by my side. I can't, I'm, and I had to do a vision around this sort of shit because I'm constantly asking God to remove this fear, remove this fear. And I'm there, well, why is the fear there in the first place? Because Tyrone's himself. And I need power. I need God to walk me through this fear. So I did a whole vision thing the other day. My sponsor gave me a couple of exercises and this just popped up. I'm learning to live with fear instead of in fear. So yeah, it's all part and parcel of this recovery process and being able to go back and look and understand through the postmortems, through the fear hunts, through, oh God, we've got so many tools in our toolbox. If we just read the black on the white and follow the fucking instructions, we cannot go wrong. It's as simple as that, eh? But I try and make everything very difficult. I try, I think I know better. And it's my favorite trick is to isolate myself. When I'm dealing with stuff or I'm doing inventories or that sort of stuff, my favorite trick is to go into my cave and hide away from everybody. And then I'll get a phone call from my sponsor saying, hey, why haven't you phoned me? And I'll go, yeah, no, I was going to. And he says, yeah, no, I know you were. But I never had the intention to phone. I thought I could deal with this all on my own. And I can't do this alone. It's impossible. I've tried many, 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 many times. It just hasn't worked. And every single time, all that pain and that suffering and that struggle that I put myself through, the book says very clear. Isn't it we that get the ball rolling? You know? Anyway, I do this stuff. And it's only, like I said before, I cannot produce the willingness to do this work. I must go through pain and struggle and suffering, and God will go, Ty, there's your card, my boy. This is what you need to be doing. I wish I could, but I can't. Anyway, butterflies are no longer in the tummy. My mouth is now not dry anymore. I think that's I'm done. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Tyrone. Thank you so much, Tyrone, and appreciate you for sharing all the way from South Africa. And I got the same crazy sponsor as you do, and I tracked him down the same way as you did, and now I'm doing those same prayers, and can only tell you they really work, you know. And yeah, I love to share tonight, so thank you so much. I'll stop recording now.